Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in Tech Roundtable Show. This is episode 666, the mark of the beast. And we've got a great panel, got some great stories. We're going to be talking about the block editor side panels. We're going to be talking about the controversial Peter Thiel. We've got a load of stories. I'm going to let the panel quickly introduce themselves. Let's start with our special guests for this show, a friend of the show, Vito. Vito, would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
Yes, it's good to be back. My name is Vito. I'm the founder of Adarim, which is a platform that helps web agencies collaborate with their clients and internally with their team.
And I've got my friend Sally. Sally, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sally Getch, the WP fangirl and particular fan of pretty much everything Gutenberg.
There we go. There must be one out there. I've got Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, it's excuse me. I'm so verklempt from being here. It's Spence from WP Launchify.
Right. I've got my friend Andrew. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi. Just as I was drinking a coffee, thank you for that. I'm Andrew Palmer, Bertha.ai and WPPluginsPlus.com.
Yeah, I thought you would appreciate that. There we go. I've got John, my friend John.
John from Lockdown SEO. You know it.
Right. And before we go into the stories, I've just got a quick message from one of our major sponsors, Castos. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. I just want to say that Castos has just got a great special offer for the tribe. Plus, there's some other great offers and recommendations if you're looking for a specific plugin. To get all this, you go to WP-Tonic/recommendations and you'll be able to see the offers and the recommendations there. So let's go straight into it, panel. We've got I combined a couple WordPress stories, block editor sidebar panels, and a story about possibilities around the theme directory. Spencer, what did you think of these particular two stories?
Two things to start out. First of all, I want to welcome Jonathan Dunwood back. He seems like he's definitely fully caffeinated and in rare form with that intro, by the way. That was
I'm trying to get more professional, I know.
You're like a man who's come back with a passion. So I appreciate that. I actually saw this story. I was number 2 to post my comments because it seems to have overlapped quite well with everything we talk about in the show. And it just is another example of, can't we all just talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room here and say WordPress lives and breathes on people making money monetizing their plugins, and instead of pretending like people don't have spray paint and spray paint bridges with their tags to get attention, that we should give them a unified way of doing it so that everybody isn't trying to get more clever than the guy before them or girl before them. And it seems like there was a number of other comments on the same page of, come on already. Like, now we've got all these new places to spray paint in the side of the Gutenberg, and then it's going to be in the blocks, and then it's going to be in the email. And remember last year or a year and a half ago, I argued with maybe, I don't know who else was here. I don't think it was Vito, but it was definitely Adrian Toby, where I was arguing with how pissed off I am when a certain plugin I turn on for a client drags me away from the install over to the, other part of the site. This is all part of the same thing. If we had a unified process that anybody who's a professional can control, we'd all be better for it. Thank you. It's nice to be here. I'll see you next week.
All right, that's great. So, Sally, what you got to say, Sally?
I suppose it was inevitable. I haven't seen this happen, but I think there is an absolutely hysterical comment in here in the second to last paragraph. The post editor was a place of solace. An escape from the commotion allowed through the admin notices hook elsewhere. It was a quiet room for focusing on content. I don't know. I'm pretty sure nobody has ever previously described the post editor as a place of solace. And, much as I love Gutenberg, the post editor can still be a place of frustration. But Spencer, of course, and the commenters are absolutely right about, like, could we have a standardized policy and method. People should be able to do some level of advertising for their products, but we don't want it to be disruptive to the user experience.
Gotta get them in front of our plug.
Anyway, when my kids were younger, I used to take them to the post editor to put them down for their nap.
There you go. So Vito, you're not one of these horrible plugin people that takes over the whole screen, do you?
No, we don't. Oh, we do. When you install, we take you through an onboarding wizard, or else people don't know what to do. It's a complex plugin.
Yeah.
So we do take them through like a 3-step
Okay,
thing.
it was you and Adrian at the same time then, I think, right?
Yeah, because if it's just like I agree with you. If it's like a download plugin or I don't know, clone page functionality, then it doesn't make sense. But if it's a system, if it's a platform that needs to be trained on, that needs to have steps that will allow you to get started and get things moving, then it's essential. It's not even a choice. You have to do it for the sake of the user.
But what if you're installing that plugin and a bunch of other things, and you want to do the configuring step later?
True. Yeah. That does happen. You got to click back. So we added one click back.
But Vito's right, and I'm not disagreeing with the reason, but I think we should have an option for professionals. For example, even in WooCommerce, changing in the other direction, they become hyper aggressive with their onboarding mechanism. Whereas in the old days, you could just opt out of it with one click. Now it is like going to GoDaddy or something like that. And if you're a professional, that becomes quite an annoyance and a disruption when you have to do this again and again. So if we gave the professionals an opt-out option, even if it's under the hood somewhere, that would be a great way to solve the problem, right? Everybody can
click back.
What's that?
He said, click back. I'm not good at WP-CLI.
You can't escape the onboarding of WooCommerce.
Can you activate stuff with WP-CLI?
I don't know. What does Andrew think of this?
Well, I think we're talking at cross purposes. Actually, you're talking about plugins advertising their goods and wares. And
yeah, we're kind of lost track there for a second.
Whereas we're talking, Bertha.ai's got an onboarding stuff. I've got a couple of Woo plugins. They've got onboarding because they're, like Vito says, they're complex. But there is, I think, in WooCommerce there is a skip button. I haven't installed it for a couple of weeks. Has that skip button gone away? But there's normally a skip.
It doesn't work the same way anymore.
All right. Okay. All right.
It skips back to the first step.
I tend to use Shopify.
It doesn't let you out of the loop. And furthermore, there's about 20 upsells, which again, you're right. It's across purposes, but I think isn't it part of the larger conversation of can we identify and acknowledge there's professionals who use WordPress for clients versus end clients, and that the professionals should have a way to bypass that entire congestion.
Well, and the clients should not be seeing the ads.
If you've done this before, click here, or whatever, but some plugins are complex and you need to learn them. And there's intro videos and all that kind of stuff. But
yes, onboarding is good to have.
Sure.
It's the forced thing. But yeah, this let's stick ads everywhere.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I can't stand it.
Right. Like what we need is basically here is the path for advertising, and everybody has to adhere to it.
Yeah, while Johnson asked me a question, I'll make my point. The one that I really want to call out, I really want to call them out. Sorry, Sally, but I just need to make this point.
Go ahead, it's your turn.
Is all-in-one SEO, right? Because it drives me crazy. Always asking me how you're getting on with it. Do you want to upgrade? Do you want to do this? Stop it, right? Stop it. I'm a developer.
Stop it. Stop it.
I don't answer your stupid questions every 10 seconds.
Stop it, mate. Stop it, mate.
Stop it.
Yeah,
Andrew, I love your new
brings
cave,
in all those review nags. It's like, installing this for the 50th time on a client site, go away.
I'm going to record these little Andrew.
Andrew, is this your new sound acoustically nice cave? It's much much nicer sound. And
Yeah, I did it all. Actually, I finished it off today. I still have one wall, but
you
my
sound very,
hand is
very
aching
good.
because I have to use a squeezer thing, and it's just I'm not a DIY guy.
That's a bit too personal, Andrew. So, John, John's
It's from Sweden.
John, what do you think of
In a
this?
brown
John?
box.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going there, Andrew. I'm sorry. All right.
See, I mean, the biggest problem is with WordPress, whether it's like self-hosted or I'm not sure about .com, but if they're trying to grow their market share against like other solutions, these types of like asking people to upgrade to the premium version, it just makes it look cheap. It annoys the power users and the people like us that build websites for people. It confuses clients, the site owners. So there should be a place where this sort of thing exists. Maybe on the plugin screen you can see like which ones you could upgrade to premium, or but it shouldn't be like everywhere. I mean, that was the whole point of the the new editor being clean and a good experience, and it's the same old thing, just different.
I would like to take the other approach, just try to show this from the other point of view. When you go into any other platform, right? If you go to whatever, Webflow, Shopify, or anything like that, they will try to upgrade.
Do you have to swear on this podcast?
or not only that, like any SaaS, any application on the internet, there has to be a business model behind it to keep it alive, and that means that someone needs to pay, and someone needs to see a marketing message so that they will know that they need to pay, so that other people can actually keep supporting the product and expand this. And
I think just to finish
but
off,
MailChimp manages
I just want to
with a little teeny upgrade button by your login.
Yeah, sure.
Who does MailChimp?
MailChimp.
Yeah, I just want to finish this, but
no, they have many paths inside MailChimp for upgrades. It's not just an upgrade button. It's they lock you out of features. They restrict you out of certain areas.
Oh, sure. I know there's things you can't do if you don't pay, but that's true with like all of the premium plugins, right?
I think I just want to.
But when you get there, sorry, Jonathan. When you get to that, so when you go to,
you're being very argumentative, panel. Let me finish this, will you? I just want to recap. I think it's a balance, but I do see what Vito's saying. But I just think we've seen gross misuse of this. But when it comes to onboarding, I think Vito, I totally agree with Andrew. We were mixing two things. I think it's with a plugin like what Vito has and other plugins, it's quite legitimate to have onboarding process. But like Spencer says, you should have the ability to quickly switch it off.
I want to switch.
Kill switch. But when it comes to upgrading, I think that's a whole other can about how WordPress is financed. And I think these really appalling examples where certain plugin authors have just put it all over the place is more of a sign of a deep problem in how plugins are financed and the whole ecosystem in general. It's a symptom of something else. But that's my take. I want to go on to story 2.
I just postscript what you just said?
Yeah, sure.
I agree with you, because Shopify, you get 7 days free trial. That's it, or 14 days max, and then you have to pay for it. And that I think should be a model that plugin developers and WordPress should take on board and allow really commercialized plugins on the repository to say this is a free trial. And that's the issue with WordPress.
It's self-hosted. You can't really do that.
No, you can't do that.
Against the GPL standards.
Exactly. But you for pro features, you've got to pay for it.
There's ways of getting around that, I think. But let's go on to story 2. the infamous, and some would say notorious, Peter Thiel is stepping down from the Meta board, i.e. Facebook. Peter, who's a libertarian but has spent most of his career suing independent media. Please don't sue me, Peter. So who shall I start? Let's start with Vito. So what do you think of Peter leaving his beloved Facebook board, which I think he's been a member of the board for over 15 years, Vito?
Right. I couldn't really see the actual reason. They're just kind of thanking him, or I couldn't find why this really happened. So to be honest,
well,
John,
can I give you why I think?
Please.
Well, he's publicly stated that he will be financing a host of extreme right-wing Republicans, and alleged he is a supporter of a widespread, like the Proud Boys and other far-right groups that he personally finances. Seemingly, he has ambitions to get into politics in a much more upfront way, Vito. So some people say that's why he decided to leave the Facebook board.
If it's under these circumstances, I think he did the right thing. It's not his viewpoint. They're going in a different direction than what he believes in, and he should keep doing what he wants to do.
Right. So, John, what do you think of this story, John?
Yeah. So I'm also reading this other one that was in the New York Times on Peter Thiel, and he is leaving Facebook with the express purpose of using the wealth he's accumulated there to back Trump-aligned politicians. And it's funny though, because this other article, not the one that you put in there, but it says that Silicon Valley is largely liberal, and that's a misconception. The Bay Area is got a more diverse demographic than, say, the Middle America, like the flyover states, which are predominantly white. But Silicon Valley, as far as the decision makers and the VCs and the people who run the companies, it's predominantly white, and they're predominantly libertarian or conservative. And in fact, Peter Thiel is a big reason why Facebook kept Donald Trump his accounts. And
well, I think you're right.
I mean, and it says, okay, so here's a quote from Peter Thiel. In case you're confused by this, he said that he would rather have Pizzagate and QAnon stories on Facebook than the Ministry of Truth. And that's what I'm saying about the free speech thing. It's free speech as long as it's
the right
basically pro-white supremacist talking points, conspiracy theories. And by the way, too, the most popular stories on Facebook each day are far-right, podcast hosts and people who pump this stuff, like Fox News, day and night. And so Peter Thiel is a big reason, not that people wouldn't lean this way anyway, because you can't turn a person toward a way that they don't want to go. But he's a big reason why, your uncle and your grandpa and your grandma here in the United States or in other places, they believe all these weird, like, conspiracy theories. Him, Fox News, these other, right-wing podcasters and stuff that just pump white grievance night and day. So
Spencer, I think it would be fair to say that Peter's had an enormous influence on Mark Zuckerberg and the direction at Facebook. I sense in some ways it's been a good thing for Mark, but also Peter's influence has got Mark into a lot of trouble, and because of the share price and what's happened recently, it's coming to a head that Peter's influence is causing Facebook quite a bit of problems now. What do you feel, Spencer?
Peter Thiel is playing the I'm a billionaire white guy playbook to a T, which includes now I have enough money that nobody can touch me and I can move into the power game of politics, whether it's, you know, dismantling bridges or thinking you can without asking, or whether it's essentially what Jonathan, what John had said. If you look into the actual details of what he's done and said and what he's talked about with everything from universities to politics, he is a fascist. I mean, he is a dangerous person on so many levels, because I don't think it matters, but when you look at his personal orientations and his history and upbringing, he has what many psychologists would call like a self-loathing, because he is the opposite of who he grew up to be, and he's the opposite of what his at least stated preferences are. So he goes out and funds people that in other realms would do harm to people like him if he didn't have the money and the influence. And you see that a lot in politics. You see that in religion, you know, the particular person who's on the pulpit saying do all these things, and they're doing the opposite in real life. And it happens.
Yeah, but get back to the tech side. How much influence do you think he's had on Mark? How much?
The tech side is this simple. You just watch The Social Network. I mean, it lays it out in simpleton terms, but like he basically allowed Facebook to be created by making the right introductions. And Zuckerberg has his own version of this, but Zuckerberg is a geek. Thiel is a politically oriented, you know, person. Like I don't see in a faraway judgment, Mark Zuckerberg will never in a million years run for any political office ever.
No.
I sure hope not.
I do hope not.
Has money and power, and he wants to use it for whatever his twisted version of our world should be. And along with a list of other people who seem to be, oh, I've got billions, I'm going into politics now. Even Dr. fucking Oz. Seriously, Mehmet Oz running for an office in a Republican state, who he's got such a laundry list of problems to deal with, but yet he still goes into it. It's something weird about human nature, isn't it? I mean, it speaks loudly.
Something weird about America. Andrew, so what do you think? How much influence I think Peter's had an enormous influence on Mark Zuckerberg and the way Facebook, the direction Facebook went. What do you reckon, Andrew?
Oh, he's leaving a sinking ship. That's what he's doing. He's getting his money out before he loses even more. Because
probably true.
You know, it's just Meta is changing. Facebook shares are diving. It's going to be broken up. They're suggesting, you know, that they're not going to be in Europe anymore. And the European Union have gone, all right, then, see ya. You know, because then
maybe he's not getting off the sinking ship monetarily, just politically he's getting off of it, because
he's getting off it because it's going to be, you know, he can't. People who have extreme views, left, right, or middle, right? Middle don't have extreme views, we know, but left or right will affect a company's share prices. So the other directors have probably said to him, you know, sling Europe, mate, you're a bit too extreme for us. We need you to go away. And he's looked at it. And
I think they fear him a bit too much. I think they fear him a bit more than that. He's a notorious bully and aggressive individual.
What damage can he do? He can do a lot of damage now when he leaves, but he's still going to be a shareholder of Facebook, but he's going to cash in some of his shares to finance, you know, the flat earthers and the people that believe that masks shouldn't be worn and all that kind of stuff. But so, you know, it's not. Is it going to affect me in my little life bubble in the UK? I don't think it is. So get on with it, guys. It's your problem to live with.
Well, I think you, but wasn't Facebook in your own election that resulted in the present disaster of a prime minister? Wasn't it highly influenced by Facebook marketing?
No, I don't think it was. I mean, the influence was started by a bloke called Nigel, who then, as soon as he got his result, pissed off. You know, just because he knew that Brexit was unworkable. But although he just went boom, 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 let's do Brexit, and you know, I think it was a situation.
Yeah, the biggest.
I'm not sure that Facebook. I don't think Facebook has got that much influence on people.
Can you just reference the fact that his axis of evil started? And I'm not saying anything that isn't publicly factual, so I'm not saying Nick Denton from Gawker.
Oh,
who is-
please don't go there because the guy will
Let
sue
me just make this comment.
Please
Nick-
don't go
Nick
down that route,
wants-
please.
Let me just say my sentence for God's sake.
Yeah, but
Nick
he
Denton-
will come after me.
You don't know what I'm gonna say. I'm okay,
Oh.
fine. The founder of Gawker, it's favorable to Nick Denton, by the way. Nick Denton, who ran Gawker Media, who I always
It's
thought
not
was
Nick, it's Peter that I'm worried about.
You're not gonna let me answer the thing. Do I have to click the mute button on my side of the control panel? Come on.
I'm a bit concerned.
Nick Denton had a war with Peter Thiel. What many people don't know, but it's public knowledge, but it's relevant to this about what my earlier comment was. Nick Denton represents, in many ways, a liberal viewpoint, let's say. He's a gay man. Peter Thiel is a gay man who is a right-wing, ultra right-wing, conservatively viewed person. When they went at it, Peter Thiel used his wealth and influence in the right-wing things to crush a similarly situated, oriented man who's gay, when objectively, it could be argued, being outwardly gay is not something that the GOP is known for, just like being a black person or a woman or any of those other things. So what I'm suggesting is, it's really odd, but if you look at the origin story, it's like a self-loathing kind of, I will show everybody how not this or that I am by crushing those people and joining the other team. And
Yeah,
it's an odd psychological process.
I just want to point out, Peter, don't sue me because I've got most of my
It's
I've got most of my assets outside
It's
of
just
the
a
USA.
factual statement. It says in his own biography that they're both gay.
They never
men.
stop. They
That's-
never stop Peter from suing people. So we're going to go. Sorry, Sally, but
You're
if you don't
under
mind,
public
I'm gonna-
commentary protection here.
I'm going to go.
I have nothing of value to say
Right,
about
right,
Peter
thank
Thiel.
you.
So
Well, we're
please.
gonna go for our break, folks. We'll be back in a minute. We're coming back. Vito looks in a state of shock. But there we go. But
You
but
can go on about Elizabeth this and Elizabeth that, but if you name the name of Nick Denton, somehow you're like calling up
I
on
just don't want
666
Peter.
It's the 666 show. You're worried about Beelzebub coming out of your pocket.
Yeah,
or
but
something,
just
right?
Peter is notorious for suing.
You can't sue somebody for
independently.
naming their name in a public commentary on a blog post. I just
Right,
named
there
his
you go.
name and I'm referring to his own
Right.
public statement.
Thank you for clarifying that,
Thank
Spencer.
you.
I
I'm
really
your legal
appreciate.
advisor
I really
today.
appreciate it. Before we go into our next story, I just want to tell you, if you want to keep up with the this show, the recommendations from the panel, and a personal editorial from me every week, you need to sign up for the WP-Tonic newsletter, and you do that by going to WP-Tonic/newsletter, and you'll be able to sign up, and it's well worth it to see my notorious remarks in my newsletter, and they're pretty notorious. On to the next story. Much more calmer story. I'm sure Vito would be much more happier. CMS e-commerce, blah, blah, blah. WordPress maintaining market lead, Shopify gaining. What did you make of this story, Vito?
First of all, the reason why, because I have no idea what you guys were talking about. It is like the other side of the world, literally, to me. This is my area, let's talk about websites, let's talk about business. So here we can see basically in this article that Shopify is gaining momentum over WordPress, but it basically the research was done on all kinds of different technologies, and this is really cool to see. More interesting to me was how React was taking over compared to the other technologies or the other JavaScript frameworks. But I get it. I get why those hosted solutions would be a more appealing go-to market approach for people that are starting a shop right now, which is the majority of the people that have transitioned through COVID. They had to go somewhere, right? So they could either go to Shopify and have a website done with an onboarding wizard in like 3 clicks, or they could go to WordPress and try to figure it out and pay thousands.
Well, I think the only thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, Vito, but I think you're touching an area that's interesting, because I just want your response to this. I think you're oversimplifying how simple it is to set up a Shopify e-commerce store. And the reason why I feel you're doing that is that you're a very experienced web professional. And on the other hand, your criticism of WooCommerce, which Spencer's pointed out, is probably overemphasized, but also there's an element of truth to it, because it's because some of the things Spencer remarked, it's a freaking nightmare to set up WooCommerce. It should be made a lot easier. So I just think you've got to take those two things into what I think the Shopify propaganda machine is very effective, but it just depends on how much prior experience you've had.
I can see where you're coming from, Jonathan. I had the opportunity to set up a few of these shops. It is a lot easier than setting up a Woo shop, that's for sure. I would say it's like 10 times easier. It still takes some time, but it is 10 times easier than to figure out which plugin should I buy. Should I buy from WooCommerce? Should I buy from ETH? Should I go to Code Canyon? Should I get it from...
Yeah, but that's linked to what Spencer's been trying to point out consistently, that there needs to be some better system around that, because it's a major problem, isn't it?
But even more than this, as you go and you install it and you're getting dropped into the gray dashboard area. So again, for us, it makes perfect sense because we've been at it since the gray screen. Since the looking at a gray screen was pretty much how our operating systems on Windows or Mac used to look like. But then everything else kind of moved forward. And with WordPress, you still land on that green screen that made sense in 2012. For as the first experience that you go through, and then what? And then you would pay someone to manage this and worry about security. So there's the flexibility is there. And I'm not saying everyone should go to Shopify, but what I'm saying is that the newcomers should.
But I think I totally agree with you. But the problem is that you get but I've said this before, and I'm going to put this over to Sally. I've said this before about Shopify, but it's very difficult. Shopify is a great starting point, but then because you spent time setting it all up, you get sucked into the Shopify ecosystem, and the more you get sucked in, the more you're going to have to kiss the ring. And what Spencer pointed out about his previous business career, so you're building a business on somebody else's property.
Stop me at the middle of the point, because my point is that the people that are starting off should. The people that already have a business should move out and own their infrastructure, and they already have something. They already are generating revenue, so might as well have the flexibility and the ability to scale with a system that is your own. Then you can go through the pain. It's like I wouldn't pay for an enterprise grade product when I just want to launch sell a PDF. You don't need all of this fuss. You go to Gumroad, right? You go to something like this. So there's stages in the journey, and what this is showing to me is that it's mostly around the fact that a lot of people are going e-com over the past couple of years. And they're doing the right thing by starting off with a system that will accommodate their starter business. I think that eventually they're going to need to move out to whatever. It could be WordPress. Some people go to Magento or custom self-hosted CMS that you can manage.
Yeah, sure. So Spencer, isn't this the crux of all this about Gutenberg, blah, 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 that Automatic should have got a proper hosted WooCommerce solution 2 years ago, and they're pouncing around and wasting a load of money, time. Is just a sign of the weakness of Automatic and their higher management, really. Because isn't this a golden ability? They could have made a ton of money, and they should have just got on with it.
I remember once I was reading a Gawker Media article about WordPress, and in all seriousness, I agree entirely. Sally got that one. Vito's point is 100% what I agree with, but what I think we're saying in parallel is this sort of simplicity and sexiness and here's what you get and how to use it approach that both Shopify and Wix and Weebly and Squarespace all deliver is what's missing from the entire WordPress experience, and more particularly from WooCommerce, because I live and breathe all day long in WooCommerce, and I know how to make that deliverable, and it does require a lot of work, like a lot of work. And it's not so much that it needs to be hosted, but it needs to be that they need to approach it in a product marketing way. In other words, the old Seth Godin, why do people buy a drill? It's to put the picture on the shelf of their kids. They need to approach that's what they're selling. But because the development team and Mike Jolly are so brilliant, almost to the savant level, WooCommerce in particular is a Home Depot experience where it's like just about the capabilities, but nobody is addressing the end result in a way that is similar to Shopify. And I think even as of this morning, I was getting comments on various things that I interact with in the community because of launch flows and so forth. I'm leaving for Shopify because WooCommerce let me down. I'm leaving for Shopify because WooCommerce is too hard. But I want to caution that there's one caveat to that. The sexiness of locking oneself into a gilded cage with the beginnings of a business comes potentially at a high cost. You could be more successful than you realize on Shopify, and then you are locked into Shopify. Whereas if you suffer through or otherwise get help to start in WooCommerce, your future is always yours. And I think that's something I've been preaching since 2006. You pay now or pay later. But I cannot agree more with Vito that, just like we're talking about the other experiences, they need to address this. And this is some place where I spend a lot of my energy trying to help out. I mean, people come to me and like, where have you been? And I'm like, I was here all along. But there's 265,000 distractions to get to the place of understanding what can be done.
So, Sally, why do you think Automatic have not been able to get to grips and have a hosted WooCommerce solution that's a real competitor to Shopify?
Well, the thing that comes to mind is the conversation that Josepha had with Matt on the Matt Report about, the bottlenecks are not necessarily in the number of contributors, but in the ability to manage them. And I think that Automatic has in a lot of ways not adjusted to being now a fairly good sized company, and being able to organize that and deal with it. And I don't think they've been wrong to put a lot of effort into Gutenberg, but it's not the only thing they need to put effort into. And of course, until WooCommerce, fully supports the block editor, that's not going to be integrated, and it's going to be awkward. So, I don't know specifics of this and why it hasn't proceeded, because it seemed like, when Automatic bought WooCommerce, all of us were assuming that, you were going to see hosted stores on WordPress.com that, that came with a fee. And it hasn't been set up, and it may be that they're still like struggling to find simplicity on the other side of complexity. That they've instituted an onboarding tool, which, I mean, it annoys us if you got to install it 50 times in a row for clients. But I think it is more helpful to somebody new. But if you are just starting out, you've got maybe 2 products, you want to make a little money on the side, you don't know whether it will ever go anywhere, WooCommerce, why? Any self-hosted solution is like a ton of upfront money for maybe very little return. And although, over the longer term, Shopify will cost as much or more, it makes sense as a place to start. I mean, I started blogging on Blogger.
I just wanted to say I totally agree with you, but the thing is, there should be another alternative. That should be on WordPress.com, and it should be a great. And then when you get to a certain size, you can look. It's a natural. It would benefit everybody.
It would, and I hope they do it. And I don't have any direct insight into why they haven't.
Well,
whether
I can tell you why, because the upper leadership of Automatic isn't that good. It's really that simple.
They've
Sam.
only built a
I think
$7.2
it's
billion company.
interesting
That's
to
how not
me.
good they are. God sake.
Well, it's also, I mean, if you think about it, so they've had all this outside investment, and we've seen them introduce assorted things that involve fees, and of course, the investors want them to make money, and you would think this one would be something that the investors would say, hey, you are sitting on a pile more cash, maybe you should do
Well, I'll be
something about
saying
this.
that. I'll be saying that, but a bit more directly,
It's
using
too big of a
using
ship.
more plainer language than that.
Shopify partner here. Can I comment?
Please do, Andrew.
Shopify is so easy. It's outrageous. Now you're talking about Gymshark moved from Magento to Shopify.
It's easy for you, Andrew, because you're an experienced web developer.
No, I'm not that experienced. I'm a WYSIWYG web developer. But the point is that Shopify, but nobody talks about Etsy. I'm looking at Etsy now. There's a guy there selling wallets at 18 quid. He sold 82,000 of them. If you're going to go and just want one product, go and sell one product on Etsy. There are so many solutions out there. Shopify, instantaneously, literally within 10 minutes, you can build a store out. It won't look any good, but you can build a store out and you can change it. You can do the headers, you can do the footers, whatever. There's free themes out there. There's nothing else that you need. Put the product on, connect Shopify Pay, boom, you're selling literally within 10 minutes.
Can you
Don't
answer?
you need an extra plugin for the shipping and an extra plugin?
Yeah, of course you
No,
do.
you don't.
You
don't.
But it gets complex. Hold on. In fairness, because I feel like this is worth mentioning. Okay. If you buy a tricycle, your kid is riding the tricycle that morning, but then within a week, your kid wants a 2-speed. And then when they want more, it's a bell and a whistle and a thing on the back. And what happens is you have to at least acknowledge Shopify or a one-trick pony, one-time product shipped or something could be simple as anything in the world. But as soon as you want more, that's when you start to run into this friction. And
you're so right, Spencer.
I wish I had done it the other way, because
Spencer,
that's all that I see all the time. But the thing that they are doing wrong is they could package WooCommerce in ready-to-go TV dinner format. Here's WooCommerce if you want to sell one product, done. May not look good, but guess what? You can still have somebody fix it later because it's on WordPress versus Shopify, closed ecosystem, REST API. And that's
you're so right, Spencer.
The hosting companies are doing exactly this over the past couple of years. They're bundling up WooCommerce and LMS solutions and all of these kind of things as a package, so that when you do deploy, we're like advanced users, so we go to we install WordPress, right? We don't click the button that asks you what experience do you want to do. I want the basic and I'll figure it out from there. Like you're saying, I don't want the wizard, right, Spencer? But on the hosting side, it does happen already every day. They do take you through
and
that.
that. Well, right.
And so if
the WordPress level is what I'm saying.
Or
take it out hosting, put it in WordPress.
You'd think Automatic could do it.
But
you would have thought so.
But that's the politics, right? So, for example, we have all these conversations internally. All of us together have had various forms of these conversations for our businesses and so forth. I'm saying the leadership of Automatic has a giant cruise ship with 1 million different shows going on. And the people who are in charge of the WooCommerce team don't have a vision or an orientation towards end user result. So what happens
is the authority.
And so the product represents that. Whereas if somebody was a marketer, like if any one of us, let's just say, said, this is our baby and we have to make money at it, we would have put that like end use version of this at the top of our priority list ages ago, because we know that's what would compete with Shopify.
It's not the first plugin that was built by developers for developers.
And WordPress with Woo,
Right.
Yeah, sure. Can I say something? So, John, are you okay, John, if I moved on to the next story?
Yeah, move to the next one.
Right. This is a delicious story, folks. A US couple have been accused of laundering $4.5 billion in Bitcoin around 2016. These two wackos, Lichtenstein and his wacko wife, alternative rapper Heather Morgan, KK rapper Razzlekhan. I'm going to attempt something here, my beloved panel. So give me a second. So hopefully you can see this. And I'm just going to give you a sample of her move. And I'm going to ask John, who's a bit of a rapper himself, what he thinks of her musical ability.
Most original. This song is for the entrepreneurs and hackers, all the misfits and smart slackers. Razzlekhan, the Versace better win. Come real far, but don't know where I'm headed. Motherfucking crocodile of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet. Always be a joke. No,
I don't know. I think I heard this on a Zoom bombing call.
Spirit of a revolutionary, power of a dictator, love to be contrary.
Well, that's enough of that. So, John,
is that the rest of the show? We're just
so John, what do you? First of all, what do you think of her rapper ability, John?
Do you guys remember Creation from like the early 2000s? She's like that, but not as good.
No, she needs to get. Well, she did have another job, laundering Bitcoin, didn't she?
I thought that stuff wasn't supposed to happen with Bitcoin.
Well, they managed to find a way.
I thought
they?
the whole purpose of the existence of Bitcoin was essentially to launder money.
They got a hold of somebody's Bitcoins. They didn't break it or crack it. They got a hold of the wallet or something.
So, Vito, as a top quality, a true like John's an amateur, but you were a professional musician. To start off with, Vito, what do you think of her musical ability?
She's great. Brilliant. 5 stars.
Give her 5 stars to you.
12 points.
Musa, yeah, I love the name though. You got to give her, Razzlekhan. So Spencer, they did track it. I thought this.
Did they get that Bitcoin back? They said they got back the ransom, but did they get back the Bitcoins? Because even if they go to jail, we could be looking at like the Sackler family, where they made $100 billion in oxycodone profits. They got a $10 million fine. Like, there's a problem here if they don't get the money back. It's like WeWork,
Yeah, but don't.
$3 billion is worth a lot of jail time for most people.
Well, seemingly they were trying to launder it by buying Walmart gift cards all over North America and that.
I think that's interesting. They couldn't get rid of it because it was probably serialized in some way that they could track at least one of the keys, maybe, or something like that.
Well, seemingly they've gone to all these black websites to get advice and that, and seemingly they had the keys. These two wackos had their keys in a Dropbox folder that was unsecure or something. But seriously, Spencer, isn't this a real sign of? I sense that Bitcoin and all these wackos that made a load of money and moved to Puerto Rico, this whole Bitcoin thing has the ability to take the whole market down. Because if these two wackos with their the Russians behind them, I sense, if they can default it to $4 billion plus, isn't it a sign that they could take the whole system down?
I mean, it's sort of like
I hope the Russians are more professional than that.
This is more like either one of the original or new Thomas Crown Affair movies. It's, if you look at artwork, historically, it was always like the big heist is Van Gogh is going to be stolen. Well, it's not the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency that's the problem. It's the intermediaries who were storing it in a Dropbox folder, which highlights you should be very careful who you use as an intermediary, or like the guy who right now I think is still offering the town like $100 million to let them filter all the garbage in their dump to find the key that he threw out that has $4 billion of whatever on it. It's that you can literally lose your entire fortune in the size of something that fits in your pocket or that comes from your website. And I think that's the interesting thing. Not everybody's at
Further
risk.
proof that money is essentially imaginary.
Like the FDIC insures you for $250,000 per account. If you have a shit ton of money, you spread it out over tons of accounts. There doesn't seem to be a mechanism for that in Bitcoin. If you lose one little storage device, you theoretically, are done. And
so, Andrew, what do you?
I love what
do
Sally
you?
said.
What,
Money is imaginary. I love it,
Yeah.
because it is imaginary. It's made by every time a bank lends you money, they don't actually borrow that money. They've just produced it out of thin air. And as soon as we realise that money is imaginary, we might stop being quite as greedy as the human race seems to be.
Andrew, what do you make of these two wackos, though?
I don't care about them. I mean, they're not in my life. I really couldn't care whether they lived or died. They have been accused of ripping off billions. I mean, they don't come into my life at all. Talent-wise, they're obviously talented people. They've managed to get $4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin.
Well, I think the people behind them managed, to do that. I don't think their hacking abilities. They especially Dutch and his wacko wife, KK Razzlekhan.
John, they haven't been convicted of it yet. They've been accused. They are innocent until proven guilty. And I'd like to see them, whether they get convicted or not, or whether the courts can make it work. But I think it's going to take them a few years. They're under house arrest, so they're not in jail. They're under house arrest with monitoring.
But do they have access to computers?
Yeah, rich people are always on house arrest.
Yeah, that's so true, John, isn't it? It's so true. House arrest, you can be accused of nicking 4.5 billion. But if you're a black person and you steal from Walmart, you probably get killed by some copper, won't you? So there we go.
3 years in Rikers.
Yeah, there we go. So, Sally, what do you think of these two?
Well, I think the story is entertaining, but I don't actually know much about it. I do not own any crypto, and I think that especially right now, while it's so flavor of the month and get rich quick, that it's an area that's really ripe for scams, and I'm sure we'll see more of them.
Yeah, it's scam city when it comes to Bitcoin, doesn't it? So let's. We're running out of time, so let's go up to our recommendations of the week. And I've got one. If you're in Elementor, and I am, if you're looking for cloud templates, I share your template kits. I've got a great service, and it's called Templately. So if you want some template kits and share them with clients, have a look at this solution. So Vito, have you got something you want to recommend to the tribe?
Yes, I have two things actually. One is it was supposed to be the next story that we missed out on, which was Convesio, that are now taking things to the next level. Just raised $5 million. And are their service is just brilliant for high volume websites. This is, I think, the best solution that is currently on the market for managed hosting. We ran the summit there. We're going to run the summit through them as well this year. So I guess I'll just stick with that. Convesio is my recommendation. If you have an e-com site or an event site that has a bunch of people trying to hit the button at the same time, you need them.
Yeah, great hosting provider. Tom's a great guy. Yeah, thanks for that, Vito, because we were running, but I want to keep this not war and peace. But thanks for doing that, Vito. Spencer, what's your recommendation for the trial?
Two of them. One is that anybody who's interested in our conversation of WooCommerce, the future of agency work and stuff, should definitely check out the Atarim Summit, which is coming up. It's free to attend. Then there's an all-access pass. I and a bunch of other people will be speaking as to these very types of topics as it involves the future of WordPress for people who make a living. So definitely check it out. It was huge last year. It will be even better this year. And it's free to attend live, so you got nothing to lose. Also, the plugin was just one I use as a utility, which was the WP-ActivityLog.com, which if you're curious to know who's hacking into your site, even if they're supposed to be there, it keeps track of all the busy bees working around so that nobody gets angry with the boss and gives away the keys to your cryptocurrency. And if they do, at least you'll be able to get them.
Yes, don't store them in a non-secure Dropbox folder. That's my tip,
Right.
folks. Sally, Sally, what is your recommendation for the tribe?
My recommendation is DeepL, which stands for something like deep language or deep learning. But I was on a Zoom call with meetup organizers in 3 different parts of Switzerland that speak 3 different languages, and multilingual websites were under discussion. And I mentioned I had, one client who uses basically the, like the Google Translate app. And they're like, no, if you're going to do AI, at least go to DeepL. And there are various of the translation and multilingual plugins will integrate with it. And there's a few plugins specific to it.
Do you think Swiss people are the best educated? Because all the Swiss I've ever met, they speak 4 languages fluently, at least, don't they? They always
the banking
think
They have to.
My impression was that, in fact, not everybody is fluent in all of those languages. And one of the person was talking about the Rochdy divide, that there's a river that basically runs along the boundary of the French speaking and German speaking. And like, once you cross the river, you will encounter some disdain for being a more native speaker of the other language.
Oh, well, thank you for that. There we go. John, have you got a record?
It's like being in Reno, John.
Language-wise, everyone
That's so
is
true.
better educated than the Americans.
Well, all the Swiss I knew, they were always super bright and educated, made me. But it's so simple to make. I'm an idiot. So there we go. John Locke, my beloved friend, have you got something to recommend to the?
Yeah. So there's a discussion going on the WordPress boards.
Never.
Yeah, the community board talking about diversity in community events. So worth checking out. Just read it and get caught up.
Can you make sure it's in the Slack channel for me?
They had to be kicked to make that post, though, which is I think that needs to be said, is that we need to Ali Simmons worked hard to get that kind of post put up, and you worked hard, John, and
there's more people than that. I mean, there's like a whole wealth of talent out there that we don't see.
I'm just mentioning the people that I know, John. I don't, I know that there was a big campaign on it, but basically, look at us. There's not one.
It's Mayo Nation here.
I have on my heart, Andrew.
Yeah, we invite.
I have done more outreach.
Anyway.
I have done more to try and get females and other groups on this podcast. And I haven't had a lot of response.
If you refer to us as females, it sounds like you think we're animals.
Women.
Some of you are.
I have not responded.
When I need to fill out the form, I am other. So I think I tick the.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. I'm digging a hole, but I'm good at that.
Well, it's kind of hard to say here. Come on my otherwise all white panel without it, people saying, so you want a token, eh? Even
what can
when
I
that's
say?
not how it's intended.
I'm an awful person, Sally.
It's not an easy problem to solve.
Just be aware that I'm 2% of the world's population. I am a unicorn, blue-eyed and ginger.
I always knew that, Andrew, that you're a unique unicorn.
We're a dying breed.
Oh, Andrew, can we get back to the subject? What's your recommendation?
Well, talking of ginger and orange and everything, Big Orange Network, they've got them talking about summits and everything. I think it's worth supporting a charity that it has and always will be championing diversity in talent, mental health, well-being, training, everything. They really do make a large contribution to the WordPress ecosphere in as much as trying to look after people and making sure that people are represented. WordFest Live, March the 4th, 2022. It's big. It's a big festival of celebration of.
Yeah,
of
make sure the link's in Slack for us, Andrew, and that'd be great. Well, panel, thank you so much. Tribe, if you want to get more involved in the discussion and be more involved with the tribe, go to the WP-Tonic Facebook Mastermind group page. It's got the longest title of any page on Facebook. I can't even pronounce it myself, but it's a great group. Join us there. I'll post videos, comments. Andrew and Spencer get involved on there as well. Please join us and be even more involved in the tribe. Panel, thank you for the contribution. It's been a great show. Vito, he's coming, but he always comes back, even though he always looks totally, what the fuck hell is all this about? Look at his face. But he always comes back for more.
It's like,
well, yes, that plus I see the gray hair increasing. Fatherhood is challenging, eh?
And I'm tired. It's the end of the week. I've been working really hard this week, so I'm ready to just lay down.
There's an evil side to me, panel. When we get guests and they have that gaze look, what the fuck hell am I on here? I always get a buzz from it. It's such a train wreck of a show, but I love it. But I love it so much. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.